Welcome, everybody. So I have Richard here today, and I am super pleased that he is the first male that I have interviewed in this series because the stories of all people are super valid. So welcome, Richard. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
before we officially get started, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself, who you are today, and maybe like a brief flyover of your journey, and then we'll get into like the nitty-gritty details of it.
A flyover sounds so like dramatic.
I know, right?
A brief flyover. This is like I think probably this is like my least favorite part of like interviews. You know what I
It's
mean?
kind of awkward. Yeah, you're just like, there's these things you're supposed to do.
I'm
Like your
Richard.
monologue.
It's like yeah, man. It's like the LinkedIn version of you. You know what I mean? And I hate the
know.
LinkedIn version of you. It's like I'm Richard. I'm here. Right? Anyways, I can do that. I can do that too. I just did.
Well,
So,
yeah, exactly.
right?
All is welcome. You could do a dance to introduce yourself. It's like, it's all
Oh my
welcome.
God, just come in, just like, that'd be amazing.
I'd like to show you through movement only without using words, you know? And I'll be like, thank you. We all felt that. We got what we needed.
I want to show your viewers who I am with my kids' stuffies. Okay, brought to you by Fruit Loops. Yeah, this isn't going to be fun at all. My name is Richard Earl Lonsbury. The Earl is silent, at least in most contexts. And I'm a men's coach. And what that means for me, not that what that means for the world or for LinkedIn or social media, is I'm a guy who went through most of my life not knowing who I am, what I am, or what I want. And as a result of that, I blew up my whole freaking life. And in answering those questions, because like Plato says, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of questions that you ask yourself. And like one of my favorite thought leaders in the coaching space, Rich Litvin, says, if you were asking the right questions, you'd be living the right answers. And right? It's so good.
That's a good one.
And well, that's why he's the GOAT, you know what I mean? It's like the Eminem of coaching, I guess, if you will. But in my journey of answering those questions through so much trial and error, I found some things to be true. And some of those things look like I am a man, and there's a certain role and responsibility that comes with fully embodying that and living out the exploration of what that means. And it's taken me to places that both internally and externally that I honestly never had imagined were possible. From creating a coaching business, it's not thriving, but I'm self-employed, right? And I pay my rent through something I created, and going on the internet and helping people reach their goals and helping them turn their marriages around and their relationships, both with themselves and with others, around with no college education, no master's degree in psychology or anything of that sort. It was just School of Hard Knocks gave me the certification, right? that and being a product of the product. It allowed me to create a career for myself that I'm still in, going 5 years strong, right? It's allowed me to, God, what else? Just create an amazing sex life. Just like where it's on tap, like you push a button and it's just like,
I see your testimonials from the guys you work with.
I am very, very passionate about bringing people together, mainly couples, and unification. I'm really big on healing, and I honestly believe that, part of my journey was healing my relationship to the masculine, which is a very fancy way of saying just masculine energy, right? Which is just a type of energy that you find throughout the universe. And you can see it when you look at a mountain. You know, when you look at a rock, when you see a lighthouse, when you see anything still, you feel that. You're like, I can lean on this thing, right? I can rely on this thing. That to me is it's an energy that I had been disconnected to my whole life. And I'm 35 now, and I'm really happy to say that for the first time in my life, I actually feel like a man.
Embodied in your divine masculine.
Essentially, yeah. And reaping the rewards of it, the benefits of it, having an incredible relationship with my woman, having my kids feel safe and feel safe enough to express any and all emotion and their wants and their needs, right? Like I have, and we'll get to it too when we get to the, as Nacho Libre says, the nitty gritty, right? But, you know, I have government sanctioned papers that established me as unsafe. So, you know, biological father makes unsafe decisions. And that was a result of me not having the answer to those questions, not knowing who I am, both as a person, as a man, not really knowing my role that I believe is ordained. There's a divinity to the responsibility, to the natural proclivities of man, right? To protect, to provide, to lead, to guide. And I was not in the understanding of or in the implementation of any of those things fully. I was afraid. I was a scared little boy most of my life. Then I end up procreating, creating more scared little boys, right? And then, like one of my mentors, Christian Simpson, once said, "What we do not fix within ourselves, our children will inherit." And so I'm sure that you've had plenty of people on this show talking about generational trauma and also generational healing and what it looks like to have the buck stop with you, right? To be the one to say, enough is enough. I'm not going to be the one to pass the torch of pain. My father's pain is not going to be my child's pain, my son's pain.
What was your childhood like when you think like to like little Richard and I just realized that's like a person when I said that. I think that a lot of the stories that we live, like some of the seeds of that are planted in our childhood. And I guess I'm just curious, like what life was like for you then.
Some people may treat these interviews as kind of like a therapy session, right? But what I want to say is, and I want to preface this with the fact that like I now at 35 and my dad is like in his like mid 70s, I have the greatest relationship with him, like ever, right? And I've never been closer to him. But as a child, I didn't have that. And one of the things that I'd like to say is that I couldn't feel my father. He was there, but not present, right? He was providing, but he was providing what he was conditioned to provide. Pay for shit. And if you can just do that and hold on tight until retirement, you did a good job, right? You're a good man. Take the kids camping every once in a while, you know? But just, that's your role. And a couple things were left out. You know, like one or two things were left out. And then I saw, you know, his relationship with my mom, and it wasn't like no movies are being written, right, about like my parents' like marriage and relationship. There's no romance novels coming out of this thing. And that's not to say that it was super intense and dramatic, but it just wasn't energetic. It wasn't on fire. And having experienced that now for myself and seeing my clients experience that, it breaks my heart, honestly, when I really think about what is available for a woman in her feminine and for a man in his masculine when they come together. And I didn't learn about it. I didn't experience it. I saw two people doing their absolute best for their children, right? They identified as parents. let's stay together for the kids, and let's try to keep these little fuckers alive for as long as we possibly can, and hopefully get them to college, right? And so that was a little bit of it. It was reactive. I was running around just looking for whatever would help me feel good and help me feel safe and help me feel secure. And that looked like not therapy, theater. That looked like, becoming the loudest person in the room. And that looked like, okay, let me just make sure that everybody's smiling and everyone's happy, and like, because I don't want to have to feel this. So let me try and create an environment to where everyone is happy and everyone's together. And they're all enjoying each other, and they're all entertaining and laughing at me and this, that, and the third. So that was a bit of it, right? It wasn't Goodwill Hunting levels of trauma, right? But it wasn't I didn't feel equipped for my woman, and understanding what that really meant, to take this woman on under your care, right? To protect and to provide for her, to do the hard things, to work hard, be focused, be disciplined. Now you have kids, and then instilling values into them. Right. So
yeah, real purposeful parenting. And I think it sounds like there's so much intentionality that you have, like with your marriage and as a father. And I get that you probably see this with your clients as well, that most of us did not see relationships like that growing up, and so we don't even know that it's on the menu. We don't even know that it's a possibility, and we just think that this is just how it is, and marriage is just this way. And so it's I mean, it's fitting. I'm sure you can really understand, because you've lived that version of life as well, that you can really you can see that, like, right off the bat when you're working with people. You can feel that in people. And would you say that what you've walked through, like with your dark night of the soul, do you think it made you like a more empathetic, like, I guess, son? Like, because I think that sometimes I know that once I've been through some shit in my life, that I'm like, wow, I feel like I've been too hard on my parents, and there's so much I didn't understand until I really walked through it.
God. Ash, as soon as I had kids, and I had, I had two boys, right, first, okay, before Helena came in and then just threw a sledgehammer to our lives, right? Like, I have two boys, Harry and Elliot, and God, I love them so much. And I remember calling my dad and being like, I now understand why men work late. I understand longer nights at the office. Oh yeah, I know. I gotta. This project is really. Oh my God, right? It's just that inability to handle all of life's pressures all the time, without really having a clear direction, right? I think that's how I would say it. I'd say that my childhood was good in that I had parents that devoted and cared about me and did everything that they could for me. The thing that I would, if I were diagnosing it, right? Missing ingredient, I'd say, was leadership. Leadership. At the end of the day, it was just like a purposeness and intentionality, right? We're going somewhere. This is who we are. This is how we operate. Outside of church, right? It's like we go to church and we do this, and then we do this, and every once in a while we'll camp. But that level of intentionality that you're speaking to, that's what was missing. But I went on this whole fucking hero's journey, right? Of just, what does it look like? What does that mean? And then I end up, trauma bonding with this beautiful woman in college. And then we end up creating tiny little people. And I'm like, right? Like, what do I do with this? I remember shutting down, basically, for close to a decade. I was working at Domino's Pizza, like operating way underneath my potential.
Was this in college?
Yeah, this is the dark years were my 20s, essentially. I'm loving my 30s, right?
20s are rough. Like, I feel like, I feel like as well, that is I mean, not to say that there's not as challenges in other decades, but that is a rough season of life, a rough
Yeah.
decade of life.
Yeah. And so when, but yeah, I remember calling my dad and just being like, I get it, and having gone through all of these things and made the kind of mistakes that I've made with my children, with my woman, with my life, you really do arrive at the conclusion that everyone really is doing the best that they can given their worldview, given the tools that they were given. And then I believe that freedom is on the other side of just releasing your need to blame anyone. And when I released my need to, well, you never taught me how to really be a man, right? I was like, literally, you doing that is keeping you from your masculinity, Yeah. Versus what is an embodied version of that? You know what? Actually, my heart is broken. I feel very sad about the things that I wasn't taught as a child. But I also recognize you were doing the best that you could with what you had. And I take full responsibility for both the way that I feel and for learning the things that I need to learn now.
That's right. That's right. Let's fast forward a little bit to right before, you talk about your life really being blown up in a big way. And we'll spend some time talking about what happened after that and the opportunity that you had to put your life back together, like really in full choice on the other side of the hero's journey. But right before like things really blew up, like, can you share a little bit about what was happening in your life at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I had no compass, and everything was about just getting to the end of the day. And when a man feels that, what I've found is that he will make it everyone else's goddamn problem. Right? Whether consciously or unconsciously, he's going to make that people's problems. Why? Because he has anger. Because he has frustration. He has these emotions that are unprocessed. So he'll do whatever he can to cope with them and just show up to work the next day and then come back home to this family that he loves and wants to be with, but he can't because he doesn't know how to be with himself. That was me. And even with all the spiritual books that I'd ever read, and I was on my own personal development journey. I'm certified by John Maxwell in leadership and personal development. I love it, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, entrepreneurship and create things and be paid for your value instead of, hourly wage and capitalism. All these things, right? The whole entrepreneurial circus, right? And merry-go-round. But I was still like, dysregulated, I guess is probably the way. It's uncentered. And as a result, so much of my life was pleasure oriented. It's just like, let me just eat this McDonald's. Let me just watch this porn. Let me just, right, neuter myself, right? Let me sedate myself just to get to the end of the week. And not to say that there weren't wonderful blips, because I'm the fun dad. Oh my God, right? Like I'm still, no matter however dark things got, like I'm still the fun dad, right? And I'm hilarious. Thank God for that. If you can't laugh at yourself, it's just sad, right? But yeah, what I would say is that, going back to those papers that said biological father makes unsafe decisions, I was simply unsafe because I didn't know not only how to not feel and process my own emotions, I don't know who I was. And so what does that do? That puts you in this state of, if you don't know who you are, you're going to give everybody who you think you should be, who you think that they need. And then there's something called frame control. Okay? Frame control is, if I don't know who I am, I don't have a strong perspective, then someone who has more dominant energy, let's call it more masculine energy even, okay, such as my woman, who was abandoned by both her biological father and stepfather, who was raised by her mom, who was like who taught her men are meant to be used, squeezed for money to survive, and thrown away because they're dangerous and they will hurt you. And so you had that, and she's street smart, right? She is super, super powerful, super creator, and she knows, like, you know, money stuff, and she knows all these other things. And I'm coming in with like, oh, I went to work, I delivered hot cheesy bread from point A to point B, here's some money, I don't know what to do with it, right? And so she has the stronger frame. She has the more dominant energy. She's not afraid of conflict, not afraid to argue.
Yeah. Right? And that was what she needed to be because of survival. Because I think we see that a lot. Like, I think many women could probably relate to needing to be that in the world to feel safe or to survive, right?
And in their relationships too, right? Because even though they have a big, strong man, but if he doesn't feel like a big, strong man, right? She's going to feel unsafe. So what is she going to do to overcompensate or to compensate for it? She's going to have to overcompensate. Oh, now I have this other child that I got to take care of because he doesn't know who he is and he relies on me for emotional well-being, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason, lo and behold, I don't want to have sex with him. And now he's mad. Oh. And then the man is confused. She doesn't want to have sex with me. Tell me more. Tell me more.
That's probably one of the big things, right? Like where most clients are at when they come.
When they're like, listen, it's been 6 months, it's been 2 years, it's been 5 years, it's been a long time, you know. And that was what I was, and that's part of the reason why I feel I have infinite compassion for pretty much anybody, and especially these man children. Right. And I don't say that derogatorily, I guess. Yeah. But I don't say that to disparage them. I say that because I was the king of the man children. You know, Liv was mommy and not in a sexy way. She was not in a dominatrix way, right? Like she was mommy in that, you know, hey, you need to do these things so that I can feel okay. I had no idea that unconsciously I was relying on her for safety and security. And she was fried. And she also had our 2 boys that she was watching after. And then, lo and behold, I was so confused as to why she was so angry. You know? And why she would then end up relying on drugs to cope with that.
Yeah.
So it was like this pressure cooker. This ticking time bomb. You had a man who didn't know who he was, this man child who had on paper, like I'm the size of a man, right? I'm 6'3", you know, I pay taxes and everything, right? I can drive, but what else? There's no soul, right? And part of what I feel is one of the biggest issues in society, especially as it relates to men and masculinity, is that there was no period for me where I was initiated into manhood. You think about, you know, any culture, throw a rock in an anthropologist's office and like hit any one of the books on any kind of culture throughout the world, you see it. And Joseph Campbell studied it. It's the very notion of, okay, you have the boy who was reliant on mommy to survive. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why mommy's so freaking important. But then he has to be cleaved, cut, separated from mommy. And then he has to go into daddy's world. Daddy's world is not as nice, but it's important because it's where you become strong. And because I didn't really have that, zero shade to my parents, because I love the shit out of them now, right? God initiated me.
Yes.
Right? God initiated me, as did my mentors. But then, and they gave me my parents for that very reason. So, but that's it. That was the uninitiated. And so for every man, be it 20 to 50, who is uninitiated, they can't bring that safety and security to their family, to their woman. That level of magnetism, right? It's like, oh, he's an animal and he's in control of himself and he wants to give rather than just take from me.
Right.
So that's where we were.
I love that term, initiated by God, because I agree that it will, someone will always go through an initiation, and even the people that you see that are, silver spoon, like handed everything, like you see so many things with celebrities or people that grew up in these wealthy families that go through problems with drugs, because I feel like everyone has to go through some kind of life initiation. And I agree that culturally, we've really lost that telling our story around the fire kind of centerpiece of hearing people's hero's journey and feeling supported, rather than just feeling really isolated and alone. Although I do think that's a part of it. I think that serves a purpose within us. And man, like let's hone in on like the day that things like really blew up and set that initiation in progress.
Yeah, of course. So when was it? It was 2018 going into 2019. I was lovingly convinced that my beautiful woman needed heroin in order to become a better mother, to be able to handle her man-child, in order to handle these kids, in order to handle life itself. Me, choir boy, right? Drama kid, squeaky clean mama's boy, who the worst thing I ever did was I stole $20 from my mom and then she found it in my shorts the same day. Like, I'm not a criminal mastermind with zero street smarts. And so I'm like, oh, okay, here, let me drive you. Where are we going? All right, yeah. And again, frame control. And the one who is, what I found is the one who is either the most afraid or the most healed. Or it's the one who has the frame. And the one who was the most afraid, right, had the strongest perspective. Because she was willing to fight for it. I wasn't willing to fight her. And we can get into that conversation on codependency and people pleasing as it relates to relationship, because that's where, you have a power imbalance. And then ego and fear run your house. And this woman who's just doing the absolute best that she can, right, ends up kind of blowing it up, with your permission. So she ends up relapsing. I end up, and I don't say no. Like I'm so uncentered at this point that that the best that I can do is just be passive aggressive, and just get angry, and just be like, you're in the freaking bathroom for 10 hours. And I would do this in front of the kids. And I would just be this big, angry, scared little boy with a man body, and I had no direction. It was just about this woman's the devil and I'm this poor victim. And let me just find some way to make some mac and cheese and feed these kids and get them to bed, right? And that was life. And then it got to this point until finally other people entered the chat. Extended family, my parents, my oldest son's biological father, his family. What? Richard, quick question. Yeah, what the fuck? Right? And so now we have other people who find out, and it's on. Everyone is going to play tug of war with the kids. And now, in retrospect, I know that what my woman needed more than anything was, and this is why I feel so strongly about it, masculine leadership. A man who is willing to go, I love the shit out of you too much to let you destroy yourself and this family So if that means calling Child Protective Services on my goddamn self, if that means we need to go away for a while and get help, right? While my parents watch the kids, while something else happens, and life changes dramatically as we know it. But if it's the right thing to do, we're going to do it. So obviously I do the opposite of that shit. And right? And then I find out the Child Protective Services, like they find out about this and they're like, hey, you know, I remember I got a phone call and hold on one second, will you?
Yes.
Apartment complexes, someone is doing construction out there, but hopefully it's not too,
It's fine. It's fine.
But so yeah, obviously I didn't do any of that, right? I did the absolute inverse of it. So when Child Protective Services heard wind that there was a very unsafe situation going on with the parents of these innocent children, that's Mooney, by the way. That's
I love cats.
Want to say hi?
I've become quite the cat lady. Oh,
Same. I love you.
Oh, I love you. So cute.
Come on, go away. All right. So they, we went on a drive. And I got a phone call. Hey, this is Detective such and such. We're outside the house with the warrant for the children of blah, 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 this and the third. Do me a favor. Don't try to run. Don't do it. Right? And of course, what do? We book it. That was one of the scariest nights of my life, man. We waited it out. We were out driving around, and eventually they had to go home to their families, right?
Mm-hmm.
Warren's still out, but they called it a day, and then they went back. And I remember sneaking back into our one-bedroom apartment, and we stay up all night. And we throw away 99% of our belongings. And we pack everything that we can into a 2016 Honda Accord with the babies. And we take off at 4 a.m.
What were you feeling at that time?
Part of the driver was my woman. She grew up in foster care. And for anyone who doesn't know, right, foster care is very much like the Holocaust for teens. You know what I mean? In a lot of different ways. And the between the amount of abuse that is unregulated in those facilities, right? Between sexual abuse, between what happens when they age out, between the lack of resources, it's horrifying. So she grew up in that. And she convinced me that, listen, if we lose these kids, they will grow up in this environment, get raped, and die. And we'd had a baby girl, Helena. She was born at the time. And born at the time. Well, yeah, she was around 1, right?
Yeah.
She was around 1 going on 2. And so we had 1 little girl, 2 boys, and it clicked in my head. Oh, my kids will die if they get put in the system. Regardless, so it was the lesser of the evils, right? Oh, okay, so deal with my heroin, addicted woman, right? And have a dysfunctional family, or have my kids go into the system. And so I made a decision. Completely forgetting the fact that I could totally just find out for myself and just like, hey, by the way, we're here, we need help, and surrender. Like that was submission. There was an opportunity to surrender to the right thing. We didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I was terrified. And I was like, in my head, I rationalized it with, this is me being a good father. I am protecting my kids. And since I don't know what it means to be a man, this seems like what it looks like to be a man, protecting my children as best I could.
Right. And I know that you had said that they ended up with your family, right? Like
Yeah.
they ended up okay. So being flown to California, when did that happen? Like where did they find you? Did you just end up kind of being like, this is too much, this is too much pressure?
I love starting the story with, so January of 2021, I get arrested for kidnapping.
Really?
Yeah, turns out they were my kids. But
Wow.
I still did. I got arrested. We got stopped because of a freaking taillight. But we were in Chicago. We were hiding out in Illinois, right at a friend's house, and taillight get stopped. They run our plates. They run the license. Oh, there's a warrant out for our arrest for kidnapping, and they didn't take too kindly to that because this is they had no context to the situation. They were just
gosh.
Like, big brown kidnapper and then his white counterpart, right? I don't know, Bonnie and Clyde or whatever the fuck it was. Who was the criminals that did the thing? You know what I'm saying? Whatever. I think it was Bonnie and Clyde. But yeah, so we're thrown into holding cells, right? In downtown Chicago PD, and me, like, this was my first experience of any of that. I've never had that kind of exciting lifestyle. So I'm chained to a freaking wall, right? There's this little hook, and then I'm ching, ching, and then ching, and for the small town drama kid, this was terror. Like, I'm like, oh man, I never felt more afraid in my entire life, ever. And I remember the hardest part about all of it was watching a cop just get into my car and drive off with my kids. And then it was that very, very cinematic, just the kids turning around and seeing me in the cop car, and I'm watching them drive off. And that was the last time that I was able to hold them for months.
Wow.
And so we're in this cell, and I can't see my woman, but I can hear her. Keep in mind, this is still someone who was using heroin and she hadn't had it in a while. So I lost my kids, which was one of her biggest fears of all time. I don't have my stuff. I'm in agony, and I'm begging any cop that passes by. This is her, right? And I'm just hearing it.
Yeah.
Begging let me see my kids. Let me see my kids. Let me see. They need this. They have this. They have this allergy. They blah, 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 blah. She's trying to parent from the cell, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're taking the kids over to the hospital to get checked out for their health, this, that, and the third. And that was intense. It was pretty intense. And I remember I was like, okay, just my clever, sneaky self. I'm like, I have to use the restroom. So they let me use the restroom, and then I turn over and I see her. And I have never seen fear embodied, right? In that moment, I saw a 5-year-old girl who was just going into the foster care system, right? And I see her, and she's just a wild animal at this point. And I just do one of these, right? Just this, like, hey, right? You can't talk to to the other inmates, right? But it was like, that was all I could give her at that time. Then I come back, and I'm still hearing her freak out and weeping, and I get back to my holding cell, and the only thing I can do is close my eyes and pray.
What did you ask for in prayer at that time?
Let us all get out of this. I have never felt more humbled in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to
Yeah.
think that I'm still sometimes afraid of rejection for an offer for a fucking business. Kill me. But I never felt more humbled, because that was powerlessness.
How have you gotten to the place of being able to like have such love for yourself? Because I feel like it's rare to find people that have gotten to this place where they're able to so comfortably talk about the hardest, most crazy moments in their life. And so I have a curiosity about how have you ended up here in front of me with this kind of love and power within yourself with this story? Because that's exceptional.
Mushrooms, Ashley. Duh. It's the work that I'm doing. I did have a life hack. I had set up, for the last 5 years, I've been developing relationships with men's coaches. And when most of your friends are very powerful facilitators who have incredible marriages and, will call you out and hold you up and are very conscious, very self-aware, very in integrity with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I did cheat. I had some very powerful pillars, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a combination of the men and women and leaders in my life holding me up, letting me fall, and holding a mirror to me.
Mm.
This is why I'm so passionate about men's work. I needed someone to, specifically in my particular journey, I needed a man to hold me, to smack the shit out of me, and to teach me how to fix this. I found multiple. I had multiple mentors do all of those things incredibly well. And I actually just came back from helping just be a guardian for an event for one of my mentors who actually helped me get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And being in rooms with other men who have done worse or who have experienced worse, and having them look you in the eyes and tell you, I get it. It creates this opportunity for you to truly feel, right? It's your darkness and it's you. And in safety, what happens is you can finally, there's a choice here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel safe, you can actually make the choice to integrate it.
Mm-hmm.
Have your darkness and go, you know what? I forgive you. And that was what allowed me to forgive her. What allowed me to forgive, because afterward there was this power vacuum, right? Like our oldest boy, he has a biological father who was in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And when we didn't have custody of them, it was this kind of free-for-all where you had my parents fighting and begging to ensure that the kids would stay in a foster home. And so they certified them, they became certified to be foster parents, right?
Yeah.
So they fought for that right. And then Bio Dad swoops in and he takes the oldest boy out of California, right, into Texas. So now I have one of the pillars of our family gone. And he's in Texas. And then you have my youngest son, Elliot, right, and his little sister, Helena, and they're with my parents. So it's very, Game of Thrones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I felt like the Starks,
Mm-hmm.
but I created the Red Wedding. Like, it was like, it was still my doing. But
Yeah.
we were scattered to the winds.
Mm-hmm.
So by the grace of God, we were let out of the cell, right? We were let out of the police department because they were like, we have what we need. We have the kids. We don't really give a shit about you guys, right? And I swear to God, or pray, whatever, I 100% believe that that prayer was answered.
What was that prayer?
The prayer of, let us get out of this.
Let us get out of this.
Right? Like, let me make it right, please.
Mm.
You know how we all have those, you know, like where we finally fall to our knees.
Yeah.
And then you see it in recovery rooms everywhere. Eventually you realize that there is an intelligence, there is a power that is greater than the ego, than our own thinking. I love the phrase. I love the sign in my dad grew up in AA for like 40 years. I actually went to a meeting with him back when I visited just to spend time with him and see him in his element. It was beautiful. But it said, your best thinking got you here.
Right. Right.
Hello, right? Like, your best thinking got you here. That's true.
That was the best that you had at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can both laugh at it, I can hold myself accountable for it, and I can also forgive myself for it.
I want to spend some time talking about what your life has become today and who you've become today as a result of it, because I feel it always amazes me how quick an hour goes by and how much I want to know like every detail of like people's stories, but who you are today and who you've become as a result of walking through that darkness, I feel like that deserves a lot of attention as well, right? That's a big part of where you're at today. So tell me, like, share some of that contrast with me today, and I'd love to hear, like, you know, how it got there. Like, what was like this big force? I feel like God and really having a sense of faith and spirituality sounds like it was huge in your life. Would you say it became a bigger part like after all of that went down?
Yeah. Mentors, honestly, because I absolutely I needed to solve this on my own. Fortunately, God was pretty compassionate. Like, I had a powerhouse of a woman who faced it with me, and Lord knows, having a powerful woman prop you up and vice versa, the level of intimacy and trust and connection that's built there, man. So we were homeless for 2 years in our Nissan Sentra, just trying to fight this case and get our kids back. But they were like, hey, here are the list of hoops that you need to jump through in order for the government to even consider letting these little bastards back in your house and in your care. Here it is. And going through these, oh, man. So, at the risk of sounding pretentious and braggadocious,
do it anyway.
You know what? I noticed that there was a difference, especially in how men who are working on themselves and in these spaces, in these retreats, who go to these things, how they treat me. I think that was probably one of the biggest distinctions, right? Was when I would go to these things, they saw me as like the man child, the little boy with a good heart. It's just a young kid trying to get his life together, right? Trying to get it back. And that was true. And so they treated me as such. There was like, in hip hop, there's that phrase, "Lil bro me," right? They're trying to little bro me, you know, and they would.
Yeah.
Good Richard, right? Good kid. And now, I would say the difference is in the respect. It's in, hey man, can I get your perspective on this? Hey, I'm really struggling. Like, the level of which a man is intimate with you, to me, speaks to an unconsciously communicated level of safety and integrity and trustability. So the fact that I'm being trusted by more and more powerful men with the containments or the things that are in their heart, that to me is the metric. That's a testament to who I am becoming. That's as close as I can get to a humble brag, if you will, right? But I think that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of. Second thing I'm incredibly proud of is my woman. She's 3 years sober.
Wow. Amazing.
She's off of heroin. She's off of every vice. And she white knuckled it, right? There's still some discrepancy because she still has a thing about authority and recovery rooms, and we're in that process, right, of getting more support for her to continue. But she white knuckled it for like the first 2 years.
Wow.
Right? Of just like, I just want my kids back. I just want my kids back. I just want right. And methadone helped. She did go to a methadone clinic for years, and she's off of that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's not even a substitute heroin anymore. She's lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
Right? We were gigantic. My dad was roasting us. He was like, how the hell can you be homeless and get fatter?
Well, I think that really says something about how the cheapest foods that are available to people tend to be the most unhealthy, right?
We're dollar menuing everything.
Yeah, that's such an irony, right? Right. And it sounds though that you two have a very transformed relationship. Like I think that it sounds like there was amazing things and so much love there, like before all of this, but it sounds completely different now.
I think the biggest shifts, to speak to them specifically, I would say there's no enablement. I was an enabler. That was essentially it. I would enable her habits out of my fear of conflict.
This is the codependency that you were bringing up of the fear that if I change this, she might get angry, she might leave, she might be mad at me, right? And it's like I have to do whatever I can just to keep the relationship regardless of how healthy it is, right? Just to make sure it's here.
So it's that sense of self, I would say. I can honestly say, and I'll let whoever's watching and listening, yourself included, to just believe it or not, right? But when I say it, it's true to me. I'm not afraid of my woman anymore. And as a result of not being afraid of my woman, I can serve her. And I serve her with my leadership, with my intentionality.
Yeah.
I believe that the Lonsburys stand for these things. I believe that we are heading in this direction. I believe that we have financial goals and we have housing goals and moving in a specific direction. I have momentum to my life and I can feel it. And she can rest her head on that. And so what I've noticed now, and this is a pretty good indicator of your woman trusts you, is you tell her to do something and then she does it. And very often it's because the trust is there.
I actually appreciate, like, with my partner that I've been with for 2 years now, I have that. I did not have that in the marriage, and so I don't feel like I really could have understood the masculine and feminine dynamics in relationship until I felt like I had someone that was holding this space. I felt held, or if he says stop, this is what you need to do for yourself right now. Like, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And so I know that sometimes we're taught almost to be like these independent women and we do what we want, but like there's something about this these dynamics in a couplehood, right?
Yeah.
That you're speaking of, that I do understand what you're saying, and the way that you're saying, like, if I say this, that she knows that you love her, she knows that you're holding this space, and that there's times where, and this could happen for either partner, right? Where they're just kind of wrapped up in their stuff, and someone just needs to be like, stop, stop, right? And I feel would you say that you developed that from the mentors, that they really
Yeah.
told you how to hold that masculine and hold that space and to transform everything?
I went down the rabbit hole so many men go through. You read The Way of the Superior Man. You read like thousands of books on masculinity. You read No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. You understand about mother wounds, right? Codependency, boundary setting, all of those things. And then there's the knowledge, and then there's the doing of the thing, right? And I had to learn how to, because I was obsessed with knowledge. I honestly thought if I knew the answer, I would do the answer. That's not how that works, especially if you don't have a strong sense of self-worth. If you secretly, unconsciously don't believe that you deserve the results of doing the hard things and doing these amazing things, you're not going to do it. You know that as a coach.
Yep.
Right. And so that was the work that I had to do. I knew then, hey, you know what? You should probably be willing to die on that hill. That's what I tell my clients all the time. You know, like, dying on the hill is, I would rather lose you for the right thing than abandon myself and risk the safety of these children. And that conviction, the shift is having that now. And the irony is that she respects me for it. The irony is she's like, okay, I can respect that. And it makes me hotter, right? It makes me more attractive to her, right? Maybe not to the masses at large, whatever, but to my woman, right?
Yeah.
Like that I don't need you to survive does something to the feminine nervous system. And you said it, right? Because now if I can be like, hey, that's enough. I'm not dominating. I'm not being a tyrant. I'm not being toxically masculine. I'm not like, that's enough, bitch. Do what I say, because I'm a dick, right? Like, no.
Yeah.
You can feel it as a woman when I say that's enough. Oh, he's serving. He's providing something that I need, that I couldn't see.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the dynamic, right? That's what I help my guys do, and that's what I had to learn how to create. But I had to surround myself with men who knew how to do that.
Who were that already. Yeah.
Right.
Who should reach out to you, and how can people find you that want to get on this path that you've been on and work with you?
I would say it's the man who, he has the resume of a grown man, but he doesn't have the feeling of one. You have the Tesla, you have the smoking hot wife, the beautiful kids, 2-story house or bedroom condo, right? You have the $1 million business, that you're high-performing men who, I call them the high-performing husbands that are spiritually bankrupt. Right? They're disconnected from what G.S. Youngblood would call their masculine core. They're chameleons. They've mastered putting on a million different masks because they needed to, right? That was a childhood pattern that they learned and that they're implementing in their relationship, but they're not having the intimacy they want, because sex is not intimacy. How many women and men do we know? JFK talked about it, man. Like, he was like, I would need to, and he told the reporters, like, sometimes I need to have sex just because I have headaches.
Wow.
Right? It was just like this menial thing, this meaningless just chore that he had to get through so that it wouldn't be in pain anymore. How intimate and beautiful is that? No. Intimacy that we want. Having your wife really see you for you and your ability to see her for her. The man creates that.
Mm.
And if you don't have that, and if you don't have your woman looking at you and thanking the Lord that she has a man like you, probably time to talk to your boy.
Perfect. I think that that's like a perfect way to wrap it up. Where can people reach out to you? Like, what are your favorite maybe platforms that you're creating these days? Because you create brilliant content. So people need to be following you.
Facebook at Richard Earl Lonsbury, Lons, B as in boy, URY. And also on TikTok at The Restored Man. That's the username for it. But also my name pops up when you actually just type in my name in the search bar. But TikTok and Facebook are my biggest platforms where the information that I put there can save your marriage alone.
Yeah.
And then it's making the decision to pull the trigger on going on an adventure of a lifetime internally.
Yes. Any final words or thoughts for somebody that might be finding themselves in the middle of this situation, similar to yours, or maybe even they feel like it's not quite there yet, right? Like anything that you would want to say to somebody that might be in your shoes in the past?
Two things. Number one, no man is beyond redemption. The idea that you're special because you've done any kind of fucked up shit, or because you think that you're too far gone, is a story that you've told yourself because you're isolated and you're not spending time around other men who have tripped and fallen over and over and over again. No man is beyond redemption. Surround yourself with other men who've been there and done that, so that you can stop feeling alone and start getting real with yourself. Second thing is that it's okay to be the man. That masculinity is your birthright, and it is your gift to the world.
I love that. It's powerful.
Thank you.
I can go on asking you questions, I'm sure, easily for another hour. We'll wrap it up just for the sake of
brevity.
Knowing that it's enough. Yeah, that what we put here today was enough, that it was perfect. Yeah, and thank you. Thank you so much for just sharing just the deepest, most intimate parts of your story and your family's story for the sake of others out there, because I know that that's a part of your leadership as well, to be able to hold yourself in so much love. That's a fucking gift to the world as well. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of that and be a witness to that, and to be able to put this into the world and allow God's source universe to find whoever it needs.
Thank you, Ash. This was an absolute privilege, and I'm so excited for this to reach who it needs to.
Thank you, Richard. Bye, everybody, for now. And please reach out to Richard if you could utilize a man like him in your life as a coach, or feel free to just share his content. Maybe you have some friends, a brother, that might need to know Richard. I know women are always telling you.
I have a career. I have a career because of wives.
Yes.
They've made me a lot of money.
Yes. If you're a wife, you can also feel free to maybe just be like, look at this guy, maybe just watch the content while they're in the room, and you never know. You never know what'll happen. Bye for now.